everyone, and welcome. My name is Philip Palumbo. I'm the host of the Palumbo Podcast, where we interview some of the most successful founders of businesses to learn about their journey to the top. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to someone who's reimagining what executive leadership can look like. Welcome, Maddy Niebauer, founder and co-CEO of vChief. With 2 decades of experience spanning the private, public, and nonprofit sectors, Maddy has built her career around a simple but powerful insight. Great leaders shouldn't have to do it alone. Her journey to founding vChief started during her 5 years as a chief of staff at Teach for America, where she worked virtually with members of the leadership team. There, she saw firsthand how the right support could transform a leader's effectiveness. What if more leaders could access this kind of strategic partnership on a part-time basis? A Stanford graduate with an MBA from Columbia Business School, Maddy served as Vice President of Strategy, Learning, and Operations at Teach for America and worked as a strategy consultant at the Bridgespan Group. So Maddy, thank you for being here today and welcome.
Phil, thanks so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Okay, great. So Maddy, tell us a little bit about exactly what you do.
Yeah, so I founded vChief about 10 years ago, and vChief provides fractional support to executives, and we provide a number of different roles: COO, Chief of Staff, CFO, Integrator, HR business partner, and we really help leaders stay focused where they can have the most impact to move their organization forward. And we do that by providing talent that comes in either on an interim or a part-time basis. Typically, say a leader has a growing business and they think they need a COO to help them set up some new systems, but they don't really have the budget or the workload to need someone full-time. They can hire 10 hours a week of a chief operating officer from vChief. And we do that, as I said, for a number of different positions.
So how did you get into this business?
Yeah, well, amusingly, it started as a side gig. So I was a chief of staff at Teach for America, as you mentioned, and the leader I supported left to start a new nonprofit. And she came back after a few months and was like, I need you back in my life. Will you moonlight with me 5 or 10 hours a week? And I was happy to do that. And it occurred to me through that process that probably other leaders could use that type of support. And so I founded vChief, and I rounded up a lot of great talent and found a lot of clients and went from there. And then we started just as fractional chiefs of staff, and then our clients kept coming to us for other things. And so we decided to expand, and that's why we have a number of different roles. But I think the common theme is really around strategy and operations and helping leaders and organizations operate more efficiently and effectively.
So like I always say, when you started the business, you said 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so 10 years ago, so right before you started the business, were you an employee at another organization?
Mm-hmm.
You were an employee. So you decided to stop being an employee to start your own business. Tell us about that process and the mind.
Yeah, it's interesting because there was like a little bit of an overlap, right? So I was an employee, and then I became a contractor, 1099 to this old boss that I was talking about. And I did that for about 6 months. And then I was transitioning out of my role at TFA. They were going through a couple of different rounds of layoffs, and I was the budget and headcount manager for the team. So I knew, I had a little bit of a heads up in advance. And so I decided at that point to launch vChief. And I think what was unique about that decision was not only did I decide I'm going to go do something that is not another W-2 job, but and go like be an independent contractor, but I decided to actually create a business around it and not just go be a part-time chief of staff or COO to other people, and that, is always feels like a risky decision in the moment, right? You're stepping away from something known into the unknown. And I felt confident through my early conversations with people that there would be a market for it, but you're still taking a risk. I was lucky to have severance and to have a heads up that this was coming for a number of months, so it gave me a chance to get my ducks in a row and start networking and spreading the word before I even left my job. So I think that was really helpful, and gave me the space to not take on more client work myself, because I think that was one of our biggest lessons in growth was getting me out of being in the business and really working more on the business. And I think that set us up well.
Yeah, I mean that is always the difficult part. So now when you decided that you were going to start your own business and get things launched, I always say it's difficult to build a great platform to sell out there to the world. I mean, it's not easy to do. It's very difficult. I always have to say you have to be a student of your business and really do the research and just do things that the average person that does what you do, that you just do much better. And I really believe you can do that through proper research and really just paying attention to the details. So once you got to the point where you knew you had the platform, you had the experience, so now, like all of us, it's like, okay, now I got to get out there and introduce this to the world.
Yeah.
How did you do that? And how did you begin to grow your business?
Yeah. Interestingly, before I even left Teach for America, they were having their 25th anniversary summit, and they were bringing together like tens of thousands of people, many of whom I knew and was well networked with. And I was like, I'm going to network the heck out of this event. And so that was just sort of the first step. And then I did a bit of a networking blitz. I got on the phone or on Zooms with, pretty much everyone I knew to say, hey, this is this new thing I'm starting, put it all over LinkedIn, etc. And most of our first clients came from referrals from people in my network, right? So people who heard, oh, she's doing this. I talked to someone who I think could use this. Or like my old boss sent us our first 3 or 4 clients because she had worked with me directly, so she knew what this was that I was doing. Even if I wasn't the one who was going to be directly supporting those leaders, she really believed in me and sent us a lot of clients. And then we had people who found us on LinkedIn. So, I think just pushing the message out through all avenues. But I think we all know, especially for a business like this, that often clients come through referrals, and people who know and trust you and can put in a good word for you goes a lot farther than someone seeing something on the internet.
Yeah, so in regard to LinkedIn, did you write blogs or did you post every single day? I mean, how did you use LinkedIn to help your business?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't post every day, but I did post pretty often, and certainly much more often than I had been, both in terms of things that we were producing. So I wrote some blogs. Very early on, I realized writing blogs always ended up at the bottom of my to-do list, and it never got done. So that was one of the first things that I outsourced, because I was like, well, I know this needs to get done, and I know I can do it and do it well, but clearly I'm not motivated to do it, or other things are rising to the surface. And that was a lesson that I think, is true for lots of leaders, like figuring out what you don't do. So I hired a blog writer.
Or don't like to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So I hired a blog writer pretty quickly, and I would, I had all the ideas in my head, right? And I would flesh them out for her, and then she would just take it and run, right? Now you could probably get AI to do it for you. You give it, what are the main points you want to make, and it'll go write something for you. But at the time, I had a great blog writer who helped create that content, and then we were putting that out regularly. I was also just posting other things that I thought senior leaders, CEOs, executive directors, other people in the C-suite would find helpful and useful, right? I think that's the whole point in a content strategy, is to be putting things out there that aren't just sort of self-promoting, come work with our business, but that really provide value to your target clients.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. What's interesting regarding the content and the blog writing, Maddy, right? So the only negative, and I've done stuff like that in the past, but I found that when you write blogs that's really in our voice, right? Like literally in our voice, right?
Yeah.
It's much more impactful, and not that I'm great at this, good at this, or terrible at this, or whatever. I'm trying to get better and better, and I feel like I do need to blog more and it be really in my voice and show what I like to say, voice of reason.
Yeah.
Versus the whole AI thing, people are going to pick up to that, I think, really quick in terms of knowing that this is not Phil's voice, this is AI, right? So,
well, I think if you train AI well, it can learn your voice. I mean, listen,
you're right about that.
Out there, right? But if you have created enough content of your own that you feed into it, it can be at least an interesting starting point to move.
Definitely, yes, exactly.
But I agree with you. The posts that I have that have done the best for me actually are the ones that I'm real riled up about something and kind of pissed off, and I'm like, let me tell you what I think about it.
Seriously, no,
me too. We're also let me tell you what I think too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
I
like
see
this,
your point there for sure.
it's true. And like some of the videos I put out, the ones that I'm like really like into whatever I'm saying, like, really jazzed up about, those are the
Yeah.
ones that I get the best engagement, so it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you're right, it's such a timing thing and it's so difficult, and to your point, as far as what your business is all about, is someone like myself who's a CEO, it's like, you can't just be so entrenched in the business. You do have to delegate and work with companies like yours to move ahead, which we'll talk about, by the way,
Yeah. Yeah.
for my firm personally. So, okay, great. So that's an interesting journey. So let's get into the business. Okay,
Yeah.
so you help companies with strategy and operations.
Yeah.
So have you incorporated a lot of AI into your operational strategies and strategies in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think internally for our company, we've definitely started using AI fairly early, and I feel like we use it in great and sometimes innovative ways. I think there's still room to grow, right? I think I was just at the Inc. 5000 conference a couple weeks ago, and everybody's talking about AI all the time, right?
It's unbelievable.
And I
It's
think
really unbelievable.
it's a little over the top in some ways, right? Like people think it's going to solve every problem. And I think if you think about how to harness it well and like where it can give you leverage and give your team leverage. So for example, we used to have a lot of processes that were pretty manual, right? Like when we were doing the matching between clients and consultants, in the olden days, we had like a Google spreadsheet that said like, these are this person's top 5 skills. Because especially you look at a role like a chief of staff, that person might be doing like 15 different functional things, right? It's not like a CFO is really like clear what that person is going to be doing. So we have people who have like, some people are great at communication, some are great at project management, some are great at hiring, some are great at like helping you strategically manage your calendar or your time if you're someone who like has your calendar full all day. And so we mapped out what are all these skills, and then when we had a client come in, we'd look through this spreadsheet and sort it by what is this person's number 1 skill or number 2, right? So now that seems ridiculous. And in between, I would say, like, we created some ad hoc systems, but eventually we moved to a Zoho platform for both our applicant tracking and our CRM system. And then again, it was still a little bit manual for a while because our sales folks would have to go input all the information into Zoho. And now AI does it for us, right? It listens to our calls, it creates the scope of work, it puts all of that in there. Things that used to take the team, an hour or 2 for every call they did, that just goes away. So that's the way that I think AI has helped transform things for us. In terms of what we do with clients, it really depends on what they're looking for, but definitely our team has a lot of skills in AI. We don't do fractional AI people at the moment. Maybe we will in the future, but I would say everyone who works with us, we have done trainings around AI. They are, sort of well informed of the landscape. And as with all of our work, we are sort of system agnostic. We will work with anyone's current systems. If they're looking for a new system, we might make recommendations, but we can slot ourselves into whatever teams are currently using and find more effective and efficient ways to use them.
What have you found what is the best ways that leaders can incorporate operations into their business?
Yeah. Well, I think one way that leaders often don't think about it is in terms of managing their own time, right? We all set goals for our organization, right? I know what my revenue goal is for the year. I know how many people we're looking to hire. I know, X, Y, and Z. But I don't think a lot of leaders actually set strategic priorities for themselves. So saying like, these are the 3 things that I need to win at this year to help drive our business forward. So that might be, relationship building or networking. It might be building more of an online persona or brand. It might be whatever it is, right? It might be diving into this one piece of the business that needs to get fixed. But if you as a leader are thinking about the ways you spend your time and actually setting some goals, like some priorities around that, and then some specific like actions that you're going to take to make things look differently. So I did this as a chief of staff. my leader would say, these are the 5 things I need to do. And every quarter we'd sit down and give her a grade for each of those things and say, okay, you said you wanted to work on our diversity and inclusiveness initiatives, except you didn't spend any time on them. Like we'll map out her time against her priorities and say, you spent 45% of your time managing your internal team, and you only spent 3% of your time on this initiative that you say is one of the most important initiatives. So I think it's a way to really hold yourself accountable as a leader to doing the things that you need to do to move your business forward. And it can really help leaders learn how to say no, right? Because I think we all often are accommodating and we want to meet with our team when they need things, or we want to meet with external folks. But the more things you say yes to, you're ultimately saying no to other things, right? Or you're saying no to having time to spend to think strategically about your business, right? How many business leaders are just in meetings back to back all day, every day, and don't actually set aside time and rest in order to be able to think at more strategic high levels, right? Because we all just get sucked into the day-to-day of like the fire that I am putting out tomorrow. And what I think leaders find is if they are really strategic about the ways they're spending their time, then they work less and they achieve more. And who doesn't want that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree with you. That's important to do. And I find that, if I'm just cluttered throughout my entire day or entire week with back-to-back meetings, if I were to leave my office and go to a restaurant by myself and have 2 hours just to think, you come up with a lot of things. Or when I travel and I go to various events, in other states, and by myself, but just at this event, learning about whatever it is, and some type of industry event, it's like I always all of a sudden the wheels start turning and.
Right.
And things happen, and it's really cool, It's like what we do, which is exit planning for business owners, and we try to help them understand. Like you're so into the trenches with your business, you never really took a step back to say, is my business really operating at best in class? And you know a lot about this too, I'm sure. That meaning that if everything's dependent on you, the owner, and you're not delegating, and that's a huge problem from a valuation perspective. So these are things that you really need to be thinking about and worrying about. So taking that step back, like you just said, is super important. So I love it.
Yeah.
So what else can you tell us, Maddy, in regards to how about from a marketing perspective, right, or business growing? What do you feel is the best 1 or 2 ways that businesses can grow their business?
Yeah. Well, I think one of them is just staying top of mind for people, right? Like when I think about we're trying to grow our business and we need to get in front of executives who feel overwhelmed or have too much on their plate, or they have some gap in their team and that's causing them a lot of stress. You can't look up on the internet where to find these people, right? Like you just need to be connected to people who know what you do, so that when they talk to their friend Joe over here who's really overwhelmed because his CFO just left unexpectedly and they have to create these reports because they're trying to, whatever. Then your friend can be like, oh, hey, send them this way. So I think, as with so many things, it's really a lot about maintaining your network. And that is there is a content strategy around that, right? But there's also just a relationship building strategy around that. Someone was telling, when I was in business school, they told this story about this guy who would send Christmas cards every year to literally thousands of people. And he would keep track of things like people's kids' names and all sorts of stuff. And he made a point to personalize all of these things so that people know that you care about them, right? And I think that's just one way of showing that you care about people. Definitely. But I think people sense when you're in it for the business versus when you're in it because I care about you as a human. And so I actually attribute so much of our early success to the fact that I'm outgoing and I like people, and people like me, and therefore they want to see my business succeed, and they maybe they become clients, maybe they send me clients. I just think there's a lot to be said for that. And then I think there's also something to be said for creating the marketing machine, because you can't just rely on referrals and relationships. I mean, we did for 5 years. That's really the only way we grew. I mean, yes, we had some content, etc., but we hadn't like built out our ideal client customer profile or all these other things where you can have much more sort of targeted marketing. So once we got big enough, we had a marketing team that has a pretty strategic approach. And, they were thinking about SEO, and now they're thinking about how do you get found on, the AI searches and all of those things. So, yeah, I think all of those things are important.
You're right. I always say that, waiting for the phone to ring for referrals is a great thing. And then that's how I built my business too, word of mouth. But you still need a marketing machine going too. You really do. You can't just depend on that. I'm a really big believer in that. Terrific. So anything else, Maddy, you'd like to add to the conversation for my audience that would be helpful to know about you or other things that how you could help them? Anything that in your mind?
I mean, I would just say if you are feeling like you are spending your time in the wrong places as a leader, you should think about what type of support you need. And that some of that type of support might come from vChief, but some of it might come from, getting an executive assistant or someone to help you with your system so that you aren't spending as much time building reports or doing other things, right? I really think the ways that you can help grow your business is really helping spend your time wisely, right? I had grew this company to be on the Inc. 5000 list 5 times, and I have not worked more than 25 hours a week most weeks that I have worked on this. So I think that's just a testament to that's how I live my life, because that's where my priorities are. But it's what we help clients do too. And I think there is this hustle culture and burnout culture, and I just think it's false. I don't think you need to be working 80 hours a week to build a successful brand.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's really, really great advice, Maddy. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. You were excellent. Look forward to building a relationship with you, continuing, maybe doing another podcast another time. But thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Phil. It was great.